Failure in irrigation, here today on My Market Farm. I think that a key takeaway that I've learned over the years of gardening is to always look for success through failures. Last year, probably my biggest failure with this raised bed was that I did not put in any real way of irrigation. I mostly handled this just by hand watering, but as we know, your schedule gets busy, you forget about it, things like that. So really the potential of the garden was limited, just basically by the limitations of water. So this year I had decided to try to keep this low budget, and I decided to reuse the soaker hose that I used the year before, a couple years ago when I attempted the straw bale gardening, which I really found to be a big failure and really don't want to try it again. So I decided this year I'd reuse the soaker hoses along with some other old hoses that I had. I bought some PEX barbed tees and elbows. I thought, well, I'll put this all together, should work great. I'll do some loops so I don't have to worry about blowing out end plugs like I had in the past. This should all work great. Result after putting it together was it was an utter failure. The biggest piece of it is it leaked so much water before it ever got to the end or really got down any of the loops. So I'm kind of looking at this and go, okay, I've tried doing the shoestring on this. I could probably keep redoing this and maybe get something that's a little more successful. But I think overall, I'm just best off to move on and get an irrigation kit. So I've looked at the Mr. Landscape vegetable kit, which basically has 100 foot of a 1/4 inch soaker hose and things like that. And I thought, okay, all the components in there should take care of my vegetable raised beds, but also I'll be able to use the components from that as well for my my hydro stackers. So for my hydroponic towers, I can run the main line and then tap in just some plain 1/4 inch line to drip that in, and that of course will be on its own system coming out of a nutrient tote. But at least out of that $64 kit, I'll be able to handle irrigation for this and for the towers with probably enough left over to get most of the way for my trees and shrubbery propagation that I hope to do on the other side of the house. So I'll just go ahead and take you through the setup that I have here, what I've got in the raised beds. We're about a week out from me planting these, so everything seems to be taking well. I did fall behind, of course, on watering earlier this week, so there was a little dry out spell on the tomatoes. They seem okay, but I really need to get this all on an automatic watering system. So here's your tour. So when I set this system up, I did set it up so that the hose was long enough that I could bypass my timer. That way I can do some initial runs and not have to worry about that piece. So took a straight piece down, was coming down, did my first tee to go off into my first 4 tomatoes, which are more of my slicers. Then come back and I was running it through. I've got some burpless cucumber there, and through the towers, teeing down into all my bush pickles. From that tee, coming over to another burpless cucumber, up into my sweet potato barrel, back down through the peppers, and then finally out through the rest of my tomatoes, which are mostly snack type tomatoes with some other unique ones that I had found.